Okay.
All
Well,
right.
Megan, thank you so much for doing this for us. If you don't mind introducing yourself, we can get started and learn how to carve the best pumpkin we can.
Sure. So my name is Megan Connor. I am an art teacher in the Ithaca area. I teach full-time middle and high school. And I'm a potter is my primary interest in art. I have a little experience with pumpkins, so put together some kind of good beginner tips with some options for making it maybe intermediate if you want to try something more than the triangle eyes and the mouth with a few teeth. But there should be some tips for any level that you're at with this today. So I'm not sure if my face is pinned or if you can see what I'm doing here, but you're going to primarily want to see what I'm doing here. So I've gotten some things kind of prepped in advance, and I'm going to go through, I'll go through everything. I just wanted to do some of the, I kind of have it set up and ready for you to see what it looks like. And I can jump from one to the other, and hopefully you learn something. So when Palin asked me to do this, I started kind of looking for some additional tips and things that might, be a new way to try things. So the plastic wrap, we were just talking before the recording started what that is all about. I like this. So I, in the past have, let's see, I'm going to just adjust my view so I can see what you all see there. So in the past I would have cut out my design or just started drawing with a Sharpie and taped it on. And that is absolutely an option. I'm going to show you some options here. So HGTV has some really good pumpkin templates, and I don't know if there's a way to share it now, but if anybody wants, I can put them together kind of a step-by-step handout. Sorry, it's the art teacher in me, but I put together the steps, and I'll share that with anybody that's interested when we're done so that you don't have to take notes on what we're doing. Okay. So all of the templates that I'm using are from that HGTV site. So one way to put this on here is with tape, just regular old clear tape or painter's tape, but when you do that, it gets really kind of wrinkled, and you're going to have to fight with where the paper has to conform to the surface of the pumpkin. It gets wrinkled. So what I liked about this, I'm going to actually do the same thing here. And most people have Saran wrap, and it's not one of those things where you have to go out and buy special tools. So I'm going to show that, because that is the hard part there, is it just doesn't want to lay flat. If you're drawing something just if you feel artistic and you want to just draw directly on there, then you don't have to deal with that issue at all. So I'll get to that in just a few minutes. I didn't cut out, so I did cut this one and hollowed it out so that we can kind of jump to this. But I did want to give one tip with the lid, because that is the kind of thing where if you kind of forget to put it at an angle, then your lid will drop straight into your pumpkin. I don't know if you've ever had that happen. I have. You kind of forget. You cut it out and it goes boom, right down in. So there's just an easy way to angle your cut to do that. So let's see. Let me talk a little bit about some tools that I have here. Hopefully you can see them, because the tools are the important part. So if you go and buy one of these kits that come with all the parts, you should be able to do everything I'm doing today with that and maybe a kitchen knife, if you can see what I've got here. So this one came with a little, see the pokey wheel that lets you draw a line along here. We're kind of scoring the line in there, so you'll see that in a little bit when I take that off. You have the dot lines, which I think sewers use that, right, with patterns and chalk. Kind of the same thing. This one is, turn the camera back to see that, just for kind of when the cutout is just stuck, you can poke it through, and then a variety of knives to cut. But most of the stuff, you probably have regular kitchen equivalents, right? So something with a serrated knife is good, or serration on it. I grabbed a, what are these called? Not a rasp, a grater. And a potato peeler, and those might come in handy too when I show you how to do like a two-tone effect, which is sort of the intermediate. You want to have one part of the pumpkin kind of glowing instead of all the way cut out. And then an ice cream scoop or something with a sturdy edge to scoop the inside out. But I'm going to use this. This looks not very sturdy, but it actually works really well. It came with that kit. And I don't know how much these kits cost. Not much. I think my son won it because he had a cool costume one year, and that was his prize for his costume with the, with the Halloween thing at school. And then I have some other tools. Like this is basically a grater. It's something I have for clay, but it's really the same thing. Mine's kind of caked with clay. So I'll show you how you can use that to thin down the surface if you want to do that two-tone. But I think a potato peeler would kind of work, or you can just use your knife to, when we get to that step, kind of scrape away. And the one thing that doesn't come with the kit that I would recommend, and you know, if there's kids doing this, they need probably a grown-up with them because it's sharp as a X-Acto knife, hobby knife, maybe a utility knife. I forgot one last thing. So to make those holes in the surface, if you don't have the tool, I don't know if all the pumpkin kits come with this. I thought that was a really good conclusion, but you could use a nail. You know, if you ever did a tin can lantern as a kid, you poked holes in it, it'll do the same thing. It's easier to punch into the pumpkin than a tin can. So that's kind of my tool spread out. You could, if you want to get really fancy, get some other art tools. These are loop tools for carving clay, and this one's a printmaking tool. It's got kind of a gouge tip if you want to carve. But I'm actually not going to use these because most people don't have them. So I could carve some of the design with it, but I'm trying to use tools that most people would have accessible, maybe with the exception of the pumpkin kit. How many of you live with a potter? Probably not too many, right? Okay, so let's start with the lid. And I'm just going to go through, and I think Palin is recording this, so if you're trying to kind of work along with me, feel free. I'm going to just go ahead and do the whole thing. So I'll use the pumpkin kit. So the trick here with doing the lid is you don't want to go straight down into it. You want to cut at an angle so that there is for it to sit against, and it doesn't go straight down into the pumpkin. Right. And the other good tip is to put some kind of notch or shape. I don't know if you can see. You guys need to tell me if I'm not lined up with my camera. So that you know how to line it up. Because that's probably happened before, where you go to put the pumpkin lid back on and it's circular, but not totally circular. So you have to kind of play with where it lines up. And this is something that I teach kids with making ceramic forms too. We're just going to start with a V cut. The only thing I don't like about these tools is they can be, I wish the end was pointed. I understand why they aren't, because little kids use them, but I kind of wish it was pointed to get that started going through. But for safety, I understand why it's like that. Okay, so here I'm not going to go straight down. I'm going to go at, I don't know, maybe a 45-degree angle. You don't have to be exact, but we want to have an angle.
I would have never thought of that.
Pardon?
Good tip. I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, and you know, it's something I use with clay, and I have certainly done pumpkins where I forgot that too. And the lid just falls right in, and that's no fun.
I've had them fall in on me.
Yeah. Now this one I cut, and you know, I guess these were $5 for a reason. I got them the other day. They were just starting to go, and this one was a little bit kind of starting to get mushy inside. So I put the lid outside. It's going to be a pumpkin without a lid, but this one has a good stem, and it's still in good shape. So I drew a line on here. You certainly don't need to do that. If you do draw a marker, or if you don't want to do the wet paper and saran wrap tip that I'm going to use, and you just want to draw it in Sharpie to keep it simple. And if you have young kids, you might want to just keep a very simple pattern. Rubbing alcohol will take the marker off if you end up with areas where it's left when you're done, or if you just make a mistake and put a line where you didn't want it. Rubbing alcohol will take paint out of clothing sometimes. It's great stuff. And I've certainly had plenty of that as an art teacher. Like once a week, kids get paint on their clothing. Okay, so did I cut all the way? So I think this one is maybe a fresher pumpkin. It's got
thicker. Great.
It's very thick. So we're going to thin that down to make it easier to carve. I mean, a lot of that will just kind of fall away. And you might want to do this part outside. I just got myself a bin, and I already did the other one just now on some paper. I'm going to throw the whole thing on a compost when I'm done, but it might be a good step if it's not too cold to just do it outside.
Yeah, clean it up and you have pumpkin seeds baked.
True. Yes, that's the other thing is you could save all that stuff. You're more of a kitchen guru than myself. I should do that. Okay, so that lid will fit. It's really clear where it needs to go right back on. So that's the cool thing about that. You don't have to go, wait, is it here? Is it here?
I just have to say, I'm watching Ivy put her hand inside her pumpkin that she just opened.
Oh,
What
nice.
a messy job.
It is. My son didn't want to do that part. He made me do it on the last pumpkin we made. Good for you. Is it Ivy? Good for you, Ivy. Yeah, so I don't see everybody's view here, so I didn't realize that everybody's doing that along. So, all right, so this is the part that takes a little bit of work and takes a little bit of time, but it is worth it to get the stringy stuff out. So when you start cutting, it'll be a lot easier to get those shapes out if a lot of this is not still stuck to the inside.
Ivy, how are you doing, honey? Good? Good.
Yeah. You should spotlight her for a minute.
No problem.
Oh,
getting-
there she is.
Hey.
Plastic on the table. That is a good idea.
Yeah. And you even did the notch. You are a good listener.
How old are you, Ivy?
6.
Awesome. Are you in first grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, your hand is like all
My
Huh?
high school students are making, well, some of them, they had the option to do, we're doing faces this week. They had the option to do a face on a pumpkin. So we're doing a hybrid situation, and they're with me 2 days and then at home for 3 days. So I'll see by next Wednesday if they had some success with it or not.
Is anyone going to roast these pumpkin seeds?
Oh, of course. Oh my gosh.
That's a must. All right.
Yeah,
My favorite.
me too.
Does anyone have any special spices they like to put on top?
Salt.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
All right.
Clean them up in a strainer 2 or 3 times and it works great. It's just a little messy to do it. You gotta do it a couple times.
yeah, they're slippery.
This is the hardest part, I think, is just digging out all the stuff inside.
Yeah.
But it is worth it. Not have a mess.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'll come back and get a little more of that later.
Yeah, you got it all cut down.
Glad I had a towel nearby. Okay, so that's that. Okay. So the images I got, this one's pretty straightforward. I know the lines are blurred, and I'm going to give you the tip of printing your image twice, but I didn't print my image twice. I should have done that. Because when you start to do the lines kind of poked along there, you can, any tool that you have, again, the nail will work just fine if you don't have fancy tools. I have this clay tool, and it's just a little easier to hold, so I did that already and poked along the edges. But basically with these templates, it's the areas that are white are where you're going to leave the pumpkin, and the areas that are black is where you're going to cut away, so you have that shape still attached there. And you have to be careful that everything is still stuck to it, right? This one you see that the cat and everything is still, it's all attached to the outer edge. If you find, like, you can find all sorts of templates online, you have to kind of look carefully and make sure there's something that was designed actually for a pumpkin, because if you have that moon or hanging out in the middle and was supposed to be part of the piece still attached, then there would be nothing to hold it there, right? So when students do stencils, that's sometimes an issue. They draw this thing and then they have like an eye in the center and it's not attached to anything else, and then you can't really, it just is not attached when you cut it out. So with these, if you're wondering what the orange part is, what I was going to show you how to do is to leave that part, leave the wall intact but thin it down. You could skip that entirely and just cut those pieces out, cut out the black areas to make it just to blow through there. So it's just an option of that. This one's a little bit gooey. Okay, so I'm gonna work on this one and set this one aside. No, actually, I was gonna show you how to do the plastic wrap, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. So if we want to put this, I put that notch on the side that was just a little bit kind of rough and funky. I'm going to use this cleaner side. So again, if I want to put it there and get it to smooth, it's not very easy to do that. You have to think about if you fold it, is the line going to continue and make it nice and smooth, or are you going to end up kind of with this weird jag in your line? When you do this, the color blurs a little bit, so I just got a Tupperware mirror, like you can see on the one over here, but it makes it way easier to attach it. So it doesn't need to be soaking wet, just enough so that it'll fold a little bit. And it stays in place while you're positioning it, so that part's nice too. So the plastic wrap is really just to hold it in place once you get it where you want it to be. Slide it down just a little. And I'm just going to kind of work the folds where they won't be an issue with the image in the window here. And then I'll just compensate a little bit if the line looks all funny like it does in the corner there. Yep, we don't want that one. Maybe the cat part to be folded. So this part might be tricky with kids to get what I'm doing with my fingers and just smoothing it, but if you can help them line it up, it works. It does a good trick, and then I have no plastic wrap here. That's not going to work. Okay, one moment. I'm going to disappear to my kitchen and see if I have some more plastic wrap. I didn't know it was almost out.
Ivy, how's your pumpkin coming?
Oh, her brother is there now.
It's going good.
Yeah, it looks like you're making progress.
Yeah, you got it all hollowed out. I don't have any more plastic wrap, so.
Can you take it off the other pumpkin?
So, well, I was going to demo on that one anyway. So if you get the idea of wrapping it around there, you can hear what I did there. I guess it's probably okay. I could just work with it just the way it is. You can see it's like starting to tear a little bit. So I will use this tool with the little spinning disc if you've got it. And I could go over those lines.
We're going to roast them.
It actually is okay without the plastic wrap. That just kind of holds everything in place.
Look real. See,
We can use.
You can do that on the nice straight areas. I found on this one where the little owl ears are, it was easier to go in and just poke the lines. It does start to tear the paper away though, so that was working a little bit better with the plastic wrap there. It doesn't really pull at it the same way.
So you're poking holes? Is that what you're doing?
So what we're doing is creating a line on the, yeah, it's pulling the paper away. Okay. So you use the paper or use the plastic wrap. Poking holes on it. So you could do this, you could tape it on and poke, and if the paper weren't wet, it probably wouldn't tear like that. Or you could, where did I just put that cat down? So if you had just that, you could cut out your shape entirely and tape it on, or hold it while you drew around it. This would be an option too, is to just have it in place. More plastic wrap. Yeah.
So is the idea with the one that you have on there to poke around it till the white is no longer on there, since that's what you want to remove is the white area?
No, he wants to remove the black.
Yep, we're actually going to cut out the black shape so that the cat stands out, and the lines that I'm poking, so it doesn't work really well with this because it's not pulling at the paper. So I'll show you. I'll switch to this one in a minute.
Go to the other one.
Peel that all away. You have your lines in little.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't know how well that comes through on the
It
camera.
comes through good.
You
can
see this?
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So if you're doing it with just a single poke at a time with a nail, you want to make sure that I'll kind of do it on this side, not enough. I'm using a nail. So you did one every ½ inch or so. It wouldn't be enough, because watch what happens when you get your design. It's kind of hard to know where each hole is connected to the next. And that is really pulling the paper away. So I planned it this way so you would see the value of that. So there's all these circles or the dots there, but it's really hard to tell where they're connected. So if you have a lot of them in a line, it's just really clear where you go from one to the next to create that line.
Yeah.
That's the purpose there. So since I didn't have the plastic wrap on that one, and I've now destroyed the image, the cute cat, I do want to try that one. I'll just print that one again a little bit later. Try it again. We'll switch. I'm glad I have this one right. We'll switch over to this one. So I already went around. How's the camera angle there? Is that all right?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So I already went around and did all of the lines here. I'm just going to kind of double check. And with the plastic wrap, when I do this, it's not pulling the paper back through. So that's the value there. It's just kind of staying in place. I'm going to take the plastic wrap off before I start doing the carving and just make sure. I just want to make sure that all the areas where there's two lines meeting up are nice and delineated with those holes. And so there's branches down here. If I'm off the line, it's still going to look like a branch. The owl's ears, you want to make sure you get those kind of detailed and correct, because then otherwise they won't look like an owl. Okay. So if I used less on the first one, I might have had enough for the second one. Okay. So this might actually come off in one piece because it's been sitting here for a little while. But.
Does it matter how wet you make it?
When I put it on, I just wanted it enough so that it was kind of flexible. It doesn't have to be. You don't want it soaking wet because it really will start to tear apart. So I'm just looking at my screen. I'm not sure if those lines are all that clear. Maybe if I hold up,
See it?
see it a little bit better. If if there are a lot of lines in there, you might want to go over it with marker just to have that extra. I think I'll do that so you can see better as I'm carving kind of what sections. So I don't, this part isn't absolutely necessary, but.
And then we can take it off with rubbing alcohol.
Yeah. If I don't just cut it away, it'll come off. Rubbing alcohol. Okay, so there's the moon. Didn't try the pumpkin enough. Markers don't work well on wet surfaces. That's no problem. Okay, so the owl is the main shape I want to get right. Put these branches down here.
You make it seem so easy. It seems
Yes.
not that difficult to make a fancy pumpkin.
So far, I don't think I've done anything, especially if you're using somebody else's template and not trying to freehand draw it. I think probably coming up with ideas and then getting them on here is the hard part. So this makes it pretty accessible for everybody if you don't run out of plastic wrap like myself. Whoops.
Also, not getting an intricate design to have.
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So I looked at a few tutorials that are out there online, and one I looked at this morning had Darth Vader's head, and it was just a lot of lines. So that's a good point to bring in. You can, if you have a lot of details, use a drill to kind of make the corners of the cuts or just drill along the lines. And you just push through and drill out the edge. I don't think I'm going to need to do that with this design. I don't think I have that much that's complicated here. So the area, I'm going to mark it in black, the areas. Again, just to be real clear, that these are the areas we're going to cut out. And then before I cut that out, so here's the kind of intermediate level. I want to make that moon so it's kind of glowing instead of the pumpkins. It's just solid. So I'm going to do that kind of half half carved away. We're going to thin the wall a little bit. This might, you don't have to do this part if you're kind of clear with what you're cutting, but I think that's kind of the bigger thing that can happen is forgetting, wait, am I cutting this part out or is this part staying put? So knowing where you're going to cut is helpful. And some of the HGTV templates that I saw show you what it looks like when it's cut out. So there's a picture of the house and then it shows you in white where the light would be glowing through. So you can kind of picture how it looked like when it's done. I think that's pretty helpful. This one didn't have that. Let's see. So sorry, this takes a little longer to do this, but I thought it might help visualize. Hopefully I don't run out of marker. That's less likely than this right now. I don't know, maybe that's making it harder to see because now I have a little.
No, I think it works.
So we want to leave the branch solid. And then there'll be this gap down here, kind of like the sky behind the owl is where that will shine through. Okay. It wasn't totally dry there, but we'll see how it works. So that's a spot right where that owl is attached there. We want to be real careful not to make that too thin because that seems to be where the only thing holding him on is that area. So we're definitely going to do that part less so it's not all weakened in that area. Okay. So this is where I'm going to use the X-Acto knife. If you were just going to cut all those out, you could probably just start cutting and probably do the whole thing with the kit tool that comes in. But what I would like to do in this section is kind of thin the wall down. So if the wall is that thick, I just kind of measured it. We want to make it like 3/4 of that thickness in that area, and that's where you might want to get some of those other carving tools. So I'm going to start by just cutting in the edges so that we have a nice edge to it. And I want to cut all the way through. I'm maybe going 1/4 of an inch in, roughly. And this part's round, so this will probably be the hardest part, is making sure I keep a nice curve. I'm trying not to get right in front of the pumpkin, blocking your view with my head. So.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, might be easier to cut if I did. Okay. Okay, and so this is where you might start to use the kitchen tools to thin it down a little bit. As a big area, you could cut into. You could start to kind of scrape the surface away. I don't even know if it's the easiest way to do it. If you had a big area, you could start to get rid of some of that. I think it's just as easy to use a kitchen knife or something that is a little bit, again, the blades, be careful with little kids, but if you have, if it's safe to do so, I'm just going to start to cut up to that edge. So I've already cut a straight line down in. So the surface should leave a nice, strong, smooth edge there. I'm just taking a little bit at a time off, going towards that edge. So I don't think this would be a good part for Ivy or anyone 6 or so to be doing by themselves. But I could have left that totally solid, and just that could have been a nice part of the design too. Again, this is just a way to make it a little more interesting. If you're
Yeah, it looks like it's a glowing moon.
Yeah, so when the light's behind that, it'll be, light won't come through at all where the wall is normal thickness, but it'll just kind of glow in that area, different tone than the other areas. And the thinner you make it here, the more it will glow. So this is not the exciting part to watch, because nothing actually falls out.
It is all exciting to me.
Hopefully I won't cut myself. We don't want that kind of excitement. So the more even you make that, it's not terribly even now. I've got some lumps and I'm going to keep working on it. But if you want a nice even glow there, you want it nice and even. If you wanted it to look kind of graduated or gradiated, I guess would be the term, you could make it purposely uneven. And it would just kind of have brighter and thinner spots. I mean, maybe for a moon, that's actually pretty appropriate because when you can see the moon clearly, you can see bits that are brighter and darker.
See the craters.
Yeah, the craters and all that. So maybe this is a good one to leave uneven. So if you had some of these carving tools, I could start to do this here. And it probably would be a little bit quicker, but again, I don't know that everybody's going to have these tools at home, so I'm trying to do it with stuff that most people would. I think a utility knife is fairly common. You could do it with your kitchen knife. It's just a little harder to get the tip. Maybe a paring knife might work better. Yeah, that's a little bit harder, I think. Keep working on this.
There's our moon.
So it chipped a little bit off there, but I don't think it's going to be noticeable when it's done because it didn't actually thin. It's just the surface came. You nicked it. And it's important that you do this part first because if it was just kind of hanging off and this was all empty around it, it would have that moon part might start kind of wiggling around. It's just harder to get your cuts. It's a little tricky even as it is, but it'd be a lot harder. The cat one that we tried last week, Liam and I did, and where the tail was hanging out, it weakens the overall kind of the frame, I guess if you want to call it that. So you want to do the really detailed stuff like this when it's still all kind of structurally intact. And then I'll cut out around it. Somebody is here. I don't think that's me. Okay. So I could go thinner on that. We'll see how that works. The problem with doing this during the day is we won't get to see the brightness factor. I can see if I can get a flashlight and try it. All right, so we could do that with the owl too. I'm going to just leave it at that so we don't end up being a really long tutorial here. But that should be just a little bit thinner. The other thing I can do is try and thin that area from behind. Go back in with the scoop tool, and that will also help to add some glow there. And again, you want to do that before you start cutting any holes, because that would be hard to, you might start damaging the other edges.
You have it sitting on a plate, or what do you have?
Oh, that's another pottery tool that I have. It's a turntable.
Ah,
So I thought that would just make it easier to spin. And see
so
if
we could use a turntable. A
Yep.
spice rack.
Yep, you might do something like that. I have one of these big foam things you can get at Joann's or Michael's, and that could be helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes up so much space on the table, I didn't think it would be useful today. So a lot of times I'll work with clay, and you can see all the mud on it. It's clay. But in terms of keeping it in front of the camera, I thought this was probably the best thing I could do. Okay, so now we can start cutting out these areas. And I'm definitely going to cut around the owl first, and then I think this outer edge will be easier. And if you buy these kits, so there's 2 different sizes. I don't know how well that comes across on the camera. No, 8-1 is just, I think it's going to be better for the bigger areas. I'm going to start with the smaller one. If you've ever tried to cut out a pumpkin with just a regular knife that doesn't have any serration, part of what it starts to get stuck against the pumpkin, kind of like suctioned in there. So the holes that you've created here actually help that a little bit if that's the only thing you have to cut with, like just a sharp blade that doesn't have the serration, but those edges definitely help kind of break that suction effect that happens. So I'm gonna start with, how's that for, can you see what I'm doing?
Yep, we see it.
Let's start with the area down here. And just work on those little areas first. But I want to be real careful where that is connected here. That's what's going to hold all of this on. It's kind of
Right.
her point. So, err on the side of making your cuts smaller and leaving those wider. If you're at all worried, you can always go back and cut it later. But that's probably the biggest thing that could ruin your design, is cutting it and not leaving an attachment point. And that was a little cut, so it's like getting that piece out. Sometimes you have to kind of cut through and make it a couple small pieces. Oops. That's his name I'm going. The other tip I have is to kind of angle it so that the inside opening is a little bit wider than the outside opening, both for the light to kind of escape through there and also so you can push it in. So I'm kind of going back over that cut and angling it a little bit so that I can both punch that through and get it out, but also, since it's such a small sliver, more of the light will come through there when I have my light in. So I think it's probably easier to hold this in your lap if you're seated and doing this. I've never held it up for a camera before when I was coming in. A little awkward.
You do a great job.
So far, so good. Okay, so I'm going away from my line here because I realize how small that branch is right there. I'm just gonna kind of alter it on the fly and make it a bigger space. So I'm worried about that attachment not being strong enough if I took away all the parts that I blacked out there.
This is way fancier than any pumpkin we've done.
Yeah.
A little different than the faces, right? Classic face. So this is also a clay tool that I have with a real slight serration. I don't know if you can see that too much.
Mm-hmm.
The one I just had in my hand would work. It's just a longer blade, so I can stick with.
I have a grapefruit cutter that's similar to that, except it's, I think, too flexible.
Yeah, if you look around your kitchens, I'm sure there's a lot of these tools. When we were talking about this tutorial, you can spend money and buy fancy stuff, but for most things, it's just really not necessary. Most of it you already have in your kitchen. But that's just, I don't see the point in buying $30 worth of stuff for one day a year. That's me though. Something you use once a year.
No, doesn't seem worth it.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to try and get all the small spaces first before I do the owl. And same thing here, that seems pretty narrow. I'm gonna,
Yeah, I probably would have not even done the little tiny spaces like that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just kind of make sure they don't fall in.
My teeth never come out right, so I know that wouldn't work for me.
yeah, it's those little spaces that always break or do
Well,
something.
that's usually what happens to me.
I mean, I do add nice light to it when you have little bits coming out. It came out in a big string.
It's all the other guts.
Yeah, I scraped pretty hard. I got most of them, but there's some stringy bits still in there. All loose. You could probably keep going. Okay. How is Ivy doing?
She's up there still cleaning, and they actually have theirs carved, their face.
Yeah. I don't see the view. Oh, I do see their screen. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, look at that. You've gotten a lot done.
Yeah. Looks
So,
like
yeah,
a kitty's face, doesn't
Nothing
it?
too much of it.
You should be spotlighting her. Let her teach it.
I'll do all the work now.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Very nice.
I'm going to try to do this if you can see that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
that's exactly what. So the video I saw this morning was the Darth Vader face like that. Good luck. There's a lot of detail there.
Yeah, it's not gonna end well, I'm sure.
So you might want to use the drill on the areas. For that.
Oh, don't tell him. He'll love that.
Power tools.
Power tools, right.
Lisa will have to send us a picture of the finished product.
Yes, we
Well,
expect to see it from him.
Part's going faster.
You're doing that instead.
Because that's how it works. I just don't know how to do it.
I had no idea that this is how you carve a pumpkin. This is so informative.
I mean, it's not the only way to do it, certainly. But it's if you want a little bit of variety, it's awesome. Okay. Do you want to come on camera and say hello? I don't know if you can see my son. He's too short for this. There's my Liam. He's gonna say hello.
Hi, Liam.
Little arm behind you.
Yeah. I don't know if you could see him. He was in the other screen. What's that? Yeah, I'm not ready for that yet. But when we are finished, I can't really block out the curtains, but we might be able to get a sense of the glowing. I lost my place. Where am I? Oh, okay. Make sure I don't mess up his little ears. I'm actually going to make those bigger than they were too, because it just seems like don't turn that too much. It's in my house. So I gotta say, these little toolkit pieces, they're really effective. I mean, they kind of seem like the cheapest tool that you could use, but it's pretty easy to hold and easy to kind of sew on. It seem a little bit flimsy, but they hold up pretty well.
Yeah, I think they were like $10 on Amazon.
Yeah. Okay, so there's again that spot. We asked that if you can find some rubbing alcohol. So that way I can show you when it's cleaned up. I didn't quite get all my materials together. Okay, so this is all one piece that's going to come out. It's probably not going to come out smoothly and evenly, so I'm going to chop it into pieces.
That's what I was just going to suggest. Is why don't you cut it? into
Yeah,
pieces?
it's. I just don't see it coming out as one piece. So
No, I think you'll take the olive out with them.
yeah. Okay, I just made that branch a lot bigger than it was in the drawing.
That's okay.
That was on purpose, yeah.
That's right.
No, it really was. The plastic wrap was an oversight. Just thought there was more in the container. But I do want to make that branch a bit wider so it doesn't fall off later. Okay, I think that is the end of my cutting. So if I push too hard right now, that
Yeah, that olive might fall off.
it's going to fall out, and I don't want it to. So I'm going to just it's like taking down a big tree. You've got to cut it into small chunks before you can remove it. I don't know why I'm talking about trees. I don't know anything about that really. There we go.
Wow,
Wow.
good job.
So probably cut some there.
She's an art teacher. She's good at those things.
A lot of it is just kind of thinking through all the pieces. I think that's where you might get into the most trouble, is kind of thinking, oh, this connects here, and then realize, oops, no, I forgot to connect it there. That kind of.
I think I
No,
would
say
get those
that.
pieces. I wouldn't care.
Perfect.
Wow, look at the
Yeah,
detail there.
Some rubbing alcohol so we can clean that up. Something's still stuck there. This is a very thick pumpkin. I feel like it's thicker than most. Yeah, that didn't even cut all the way through. So the owl is definitely going to be the flimsy part. I don't know, as pumpkin starts to degrade, this may not last a whole lot longer, but Halloween's only a week away, right? Did that fly at you?
Yeah.
It's flying here. Okay, I gotta cut this in a smaller piece. Not coming out as one.
Behind you.
And you can see the owl moving.
Yes.
Might just leave that.
So thick right here. My cutting tool has not gone all the way through. So I think that's the problem. There we go. There we go.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so if I were to do this one again, I might try and leave a connection there somehow. I'm not sure if there'd be
Catch
with
the ears. Yeah.
the design or make the ears go up, but that does seem like it would be, I don't know how you guys can see that wiggling.
Yes, you
I
can.
think it would be fine. The other thing you could do, I don't have any toothpicks with me, is you could drive a toothpick down through
Oh,
the nail.
yes.
You could do that with the nail, actually. There you go. I use my nail for that. That would hold it in place. I don't know if that nail
Uh-huh.
will work as well.
Yes.
So that's one I think I've cut out all the pieces.
Yep.
So we just need to clean up the marker. Can you get me a tissue, please?
Looking good.
So far, so good. How are we doing on time? Okay.
I got two.
Thank you, Lynn. Just gonna wet that a little bit, and it comes right off, which is kind of cool. If your child ever puts marker all over like the kitchen wall or something, try rubbing alcohol. It's gonna penetrate down into the poke holes that I made, so they might not come out entirely, but certainly a lot better than it was a minute ago. So I don't know how long we intended to go today. I think we'll end right about in an hour.
This is great, Megan.
Yeah. A couple tips, and I always forget to do this, but so one thing you can do is put the whole thing in a sink full of like mild bleach solution. And I understand that will kind of kill any bacteria that might be present, especially if you got the $5 pumpkin that's like maybe a little bit past prime. And then petroleum jelly, or I think Aquaphor would do the same thing. We still have that left over from when this one was little. You can put on all the open surfaces, and that will protect it a little bit too, just from that whatever bacteria starts to grow. And an old toothbrush is good to just get some of those bits off.
Is that your old?
This was my old toothbrush, but I do not plan on brushing my teeth with it again, don't worry.
Good. I don't have to brush my teeth with it either.
I won't make you brush your teeth with it either. Okay, so the marker did leave some kind of little bits there. If I'm feeling really brave, I might try to thin that more. I'm not gonna, like I would come back and grate some of that off. Actually, that's not feeling too dangerous.
That looks pretty.
So it will glow a little bit more. So you could do this maybe even with your kitchen peeler. I'm just trying it. Yeah, kind of works. But I should probably not push it too far. Where'd that flashlight go?
That looks great.
Turn the overhead off, and let's see if we can get a sense of the glow here. Turn this off.
Yeah.
So I don't know how. Yeah, I think this effect would be better in the dark. And I think thinning this a little bit more would even do it more, but you might get a sense of the glow there. It's a little bit just too light. in the
No.
room.
I get sense.
Yeah, and I think that brace was a good idea, so I'll leave that there. Okay.
Meg, I bet it's fun having a mom who's an art teacher. I saw your son glowing over there.
Is it cool? Yeah. we have fun, don't we? Let's see. So let me look at my notes and make sure I didn't forget anything. So cleaning it up. You know, I don't want to go over what time you guys set. So I might go back and trim a little bit more in these so that they're more angled in, like I was saying before. Just go in and kind of cut some of that. It'll let the light come out. So I would do that before I do any cleaning with bleach or adding any kind of jelly to it. Just open those areas up some.
So were you saying you use Vaseline on those open areas?
Yeah, so that's what I've read. I won't lie. I actually haven't done that. I usually just cut it and put it out and say, great, done, because that's the fun part is cutting it. But I have read, so I just have a bottle of what was Aquaphor we had when my son was a baby. And yeah, I guess the idea is you just kind of put it on the surfaces and it will keep some of the bacteria growing because the oxygen isn't getting to those areas.
Okay.
I believe that's the value in it.
Right, because otherwise they deteriorate even faster.
Yeah, it's just kind of a seal in its oil. I'm looking out on the porch, the cat one we cut last week, and it's just starting to like shrivel and look really bad. I should have done that to try it. So yeah, you just kind of put that all over the surfaces, and it should preserve it. Colder weather is obviously going to keep it longer, and we've had these kind of oddly warm days. I don't know where I put the lid of this now. There it is.
Randy and Nicole, am I going to see yours out on your front step so I can come by and do a picture?
Yes, you will, for sure.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
There we go. We got a kitty cat.
Oh, is that great? Nice
I
job.
picked it out, so, you know.
Oh, my word.
Good.
That is really nice.
Yeah.
Randy's
That's really nice.
Darth Vader over here. You know.
How is Darth Vader coming along?
I'll be done tomorrow.
Are you thinning it the way?
Yeah, you're thinning it.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a way that makes it easier. The pieces with a lot of cutouts, then you have all these kind of hanging edges. So having some areas thin leaves some structure to it. You just have to think through what you're going to do before you cut it is the main thing. So I think I've kind of covered all the tips I have for you. There's so much more out there on the internet if you want to look into doing some other fun things. So one I saw you could cut get a melon baller or a ice cream scoop and cut it out. And if you have a pumpkin with eyes, you kind of put it back in with toothpicks, which was what made me think of this. And it looks like you get the glowing effect of that round eyeball in there. And then I've also seen lots of fun ones where if there's a big mouth, you get one of these cute little smaller pumpkins and make the pumpkin look like it's biting into that. So there's so many fun designs you can see. Pinterest, you spend more time on Pinterest than you will actually carving one if you get too far into it. I love Pinterest. So many fun things. So
Good job.
yeah, so thank you for coming and watching. And if there's any questions about something I did, or I don't know if anybody wants to
I
ask.
do have a question.
Great job.
Yeah.
I saw online someone suggesting to cut the hole in the bottom.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I thought that was a good idea in terms of not having, because they said, oh, who wants to see the ugly cut on top? But that actually reminds me, the last thing I was going to say is if you're putting an actual candle inside and you have not cut the top out, like you don't want to put the lid on and have it drying out or catching on fire. If a lot of people are using LED little lanterns, so that's maybe the purpose there is that you're just not doing anything flammable. But I don't think you'd want to do that if you had a real candle in there.
Yeah.
But the reason I saw was that then you just don't have what they said was the ugly lid on top. So I don't know. I don't think the lid is ugly personally, but this one is now
That
missing
makes
one.
it what it is,
Right. So this one won't have a lid.
And also read you can sprinkle spices like cinnamon if you want them to smell good. Sprinkle it around the top.
That's a great idea too. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I've seen people put bowls in the top and then fill it with candy and leave it by the door, so you can get all sorts of creative with it.
Nice.
A friend, one of Liam's friends' dads, found the white pumpkins, so I don't have one. I guess this is kind of different color, and he had put it so that it was like the iris color against the orange pumpkin. That was really neat. I don't think I have a picture I can share of that, but yeah, I've seen lots of creative ones. And then some people just carve the surface into like a sculptural, more like you might carve marble, like there's no cutouts and it's just the faces in there. But that definitely takes some carving tools and a lot more skill and patience. So I think this is more accessible for most people. You can choose to do the thinning part or not. I think even if I had just left that full, it would still be a neat design when we get the candle in it and get it glowing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that much harder than carving teeth.
And carving what?
Teeth.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think my biggest piece of advice is kind of think through, imagine going through each step, and like if I cut this first, is it going to be hard to cut that? That's helpful. If you just kind of jump in and start, then you might find yourself in a spot that if you had reversed the steps, it would have been a little easier. Or thinking about the joints, like I said, I'm glad that I made those wider because I just think they would have been way too thin.
Well, and I think the fact that.
So when Randy and Nicole are done, they'll send them over to me and I can put them up on the Facebook page.
Sounds good.
Okay, good deal.
Okay.
We can do that.
This was wonderful.
Yeah, this is great.
What a great
Thanks.
presentation. Like I said, I had no idea how people do it, but I know I've seen such great things. And I'm like, that must be really hard work, but you made it look pretty darn easy.
Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you feel like you can try it. And
Oh, yeah.
Thanks,
What I thought was
Megan.
the most ingenious one is putting saran wrap on it. I've taped it to it.
that was new to me.
The
Too.
hardest thing that I ever did was getting them that way. So that's cool that you did it that way. I
So
love
just
it.
make sure you don't run out of saran wrap.
I think wetting the design to make it fit was pretty clever too. I haven't
Yeah.
thought of that.
Yeah, it's just getting it on a round surface is the hardest part. So
Yeah.
I actually think the paper looks kind of cool. It's got this tie-dye effect. Like,
Yeah.
see,
And you
leave
did
it
that
in the
pumpkin,
window.
and you did that pumpkin all within an hour.
Yeah, so I did put the plastic wrap on before, but I kind of was showing the other steps. So I think it could be done in an hour. I don't think I was going super fast or anything. So
Well, and the
Yeah.
other thing is you cleaned them out and stuff. So, I mean, it's all that stuff that's the time consuming.
Megan, thank you so much for your time. This was really great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
you.
job.
if you're interested in seeing pottery, you can take a look at some of my work at megconner.com. This is not my specialty, but clay and carving clay is a bit more my specialty. It's megconner.com.
Cool.
And I can't wait to see the pumpkin results. I'm definitely going to be checking out the Facebook page.
Great.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Darth Vader when you're
I
done.
have a picture. I'm waiting for Darth Vader, but I have the other picture, so we'll get them up on the
Way
website.
over my head.
Might be a little while.
Okay, no
Take your time.
problem. Have a